Imagine the agonizing wait, the desperate hope, and then the crushing news. In a grim development in the Israel-Hamas conflict, Israel has announced the recovery of the remains of a hostage from Gaza. This news, confirmed by the military on Tuesday, offers a sliver of progress amid the fragile US-brokered ceasefire. But here's where it gets controversial. The identification process and the circumstances surrounding the recovery are fraught with complexity and raise difficult questions. Prior to this announcement, Hamas had already returned the remains of 20 hostages since the ceasefire commenced on October 10th. If forensic testing confirms the identity of this newly recovered individual, it would mean that the remains of approximately 7 other hostages are believed to remain within Gaza. This ceasefire, remember, is intended to de-escalate what has been described as the deadliest and most destructive war ever between Israel and Hamas. The military wing of Hamas previously stated that they had located the body of an Israeli soldier within Gaza and intended to return those remains. However, Israel's statement made no specific mention of whether the remains just recovered were those of the soldier. This discrepancy highlights the delicate nature of these exchanges and the potential for miscommunication or differing interpretations. Over the past few days, militants in Gaza have been releasing bodies at a rate of one. Hamas, on the other hand, has cited the widespread devastation in Gaza as a factor complicating the process. And this is the part most people miss: the sheer logistical and emotional challenge of locating and identifying remains amidst the rubble and ongoing tensions. In a deeply unsettling exchange, for each Israeli hostage returned, or their remains, Israel has been releasing the remains of 15 Palestinians. To date, around 270 Palestinian bodies have been handed over under the current ceasefire agreement. Shockingly, fewer than half of these have been positively identified. The forensic work is severely hampered by a critical shortage of DNA testing kits within Gaza. As a desperate measure, the health ministry in Gaza is resorting to posting photographs of the remains online, desperately hoping that families will recognize their loved ones. The conflict itself erupted following the devastating Hamas-led attack on southern Israel on October 7, 2023. This attack resulted in the deaths of approximately 1,200 people and the abduction of 251 hostages. Israel responded with a large-scale military offensive into Gaza. According to Gaza's health ministry, this offensive has resulted in the deaths of over 68,800 Palestinians in Gaza. It's crucial to understand that the ministry, while part of the Hamas-run government, is staffed by medical professionals and Israel has vehemently denied accusations, including those made by a UN Commission of Inquiry, of committing genocide in Gaza. But here's a thought-provoking question. Can the scale of destruction and loss of life, regardless of intent, still be considered a form of collective punishment? This is just one of the many questions that the international community is grappling with. Meanwhile, the United States is actively seeking a longer-term solution. They have drafted a text for the UN Security Council that would authorize an international stabilization force in Gaza for a minimum of 2 years. This draft, confirmed by US officials, represents an initial framework that will likely be subject to extensive negotiations among council members and international partners. Arab nations and other countries have expressed interest in contributing to this force, but they have emphasized the necessity of UN backing to secure their participation. One official noted that the document is intended as a starting point for building consensus among all parties. Efforts to increase humanitarian aid are also underway. The World Food Programme, WFP, has reported reaching 1 million people in Gaza with food parcels since the ceasefire began. However, Ross Smith, the WFP's Director of Emergency Preparedness and Response, emphasized that more border crossings must be opened to effectively scale up these efforts. He stated that the WFP is currently only able to move half of the supplies it intends to deliver into Gaza, and that access to all internal routes within Gaza remains restricted. During a visit to the West Bank, Singapore's Foreign Minister Vivian Balakrishnan reaffirmed his country's commitment to the aid process, witnessing the handover of the latest installment in $24 million of aid to the WFP. Furthermore, nearly 40 countries and international organizations now have representatives at a U.S.-led center in Israel, established to coordinate aid to Gaza and monitor the ceasefire. This situation is constantly evolving. What are your thoughts on the role of international forces in Gaza? Do you believe that the current aid efforts are sufficient? And perhaps, most importantly, how can a lasting peace be achieved in the region? Share your perspectives in the comments below.